Now this is not the end. It is not even the beginning of the end. But it is, perhaps, the end of the beginning. Winston Churchill, November 10th, 1942. Curious. Dr. Brief stroked his magnificent mustache as he examined the readouts from the machine, which was hooked up to Bulma's head via several electrodes. I'm not detecting any sort of abnormal brain activity. Are you sure it's still happening? It wasn't just a one-off thing. I'm pretty sure. Bulma indicated the plastic side of the machine, now half covered with number 7-shaped indentations. I scratched those just now without even realizing. How strange. Her father turned the machine off, and she pulled the electrodes off her head, standing up and following him out of the room. I know, right? She said eagerly, her scientific curiosity outweighed any fear of the unknown. It's so specific. Though, do you think it might be a message? Dr. Brief nodded. It's possible. Given that we can't detect the source, it's entirely possible that it's some kind of message from a higher intelligence, more sophisticated than us. But if so, what's so important about the number 7? 7 what? Exactly! She frowned, rubbing her head. It's so vague. Is it a place? A time? A person? She shrugged. I've been around a lot of experimental tech recently. Maybe it's damaged my brain somehow and it doesn't mean anything. I could just be going crazy. Well, I wouldn't jump to conclusions like that. Oh, just a minute, dear. He noticed a passing scientist and rushed off in pursuit of him. His brain is always trying to do everything at once. Simmons! Have you got the test results? We don't want another resonance cascade. Bulma sighed. That's my dad for you. He can't stand still for 5 seconds. She rounded the corner, intent on continuing the investigation on her own, but bumped into a familiar figure. Oh, hey Goku. Hi. The powerfully built, yet friendly man standing in the corridor waved. Didn't see you come in. Yeah, I moved pretty fast. So, did you want anything? Well, yeah, no, He stopped, thinking. I just wanted to see you alive, back at work. To know that the world's back to normal, you know? Bulma laughed. Oh, come on, Goku, of course it is! Thanks to you, anyway. Hey, it wasn't all me, he protested. But, do you see what I mean? When you died, I almost lost myself. It was too much. I can't. If we'd lost, you'd have been gone forever. And Tien, and Yamcha, and everybody. Don't forget yourself, she reminded him. The Earth would be a lot worse off without its hero. He shook his head. No, it doesn't matter. You've got to understand, I wouldn't care if I had to die. If you're all safe, that's what matters. She nodded. Yeah, I know that. You're a good guy, you know? Guess that bump on your head when you were a kid left you a clean slate, and your grandpa only taught you how to be a good person. You never knew how to be anything else. Sure. He leaned against the wall, looking downcast. Goku? What's the matter? He hesitated. Raditz? Yeah. She sighed. Oh boy. I wish I could say I know how you feel, but I don't, of course. Just know, he only did what you do. It was you or him, and out of the two, you had the power to stop Cell. I know! He pounded on the side of his head with one hand. I know, but I can't help thinking about it. Going through it in my mind, there must have been another way. There's always a better way. I should have been able to save everybody. You're not a god, Goku. No, he said grimly. I'm not. I've met gods, and surpassed them. He started pacing up and down the corridor. I don't know. I guess you're right. I can't be everywhere, but I wish I could. I wish I could save everybody. Do you know, I even feel a little guilty about killing Cell. She laughed despite herself. Yeah, that's you alright. Try not to stay sad like this for too long. It doesn't suit you, and... She stopped talking as his outline faded and he vanished, leaving at supersonic speeds. Frowning, she looked down, seeing she'd found a pencil somewhere, and the wall was dotted with hastily scribbled 7s. Okay, seriously! She shouted in frustration. 7 what? Tien looked up from his meditations. He'd sensed the approaching Ki, and eventually heard the footsteps, as the traveler approached his and Chaozu's mountain home. Reluctantly, he opened his eyes and stood up, as the arrival approached him, cloaked in several layers of clothing against the biting winds. She pulled down her hood, revealing herself as Launch. Finally, she grumbled. You couldn't just live somewhere I can drive to like everybody else? Hi, Launch. Tien led her inside, where Chaozu was cooking dinner, hovering a few feet above the ground to be level with the cooker, small as he was. Oh, hi there. The friendly Zhangxi called, waving and then turning his attention back to the meal. Launch slumped down in the nearest chair, throwing off her traveling robes into an untidy heap on the floor. She unslung a bundle of cloth from her back, cradling in her arms, this timeline's break, asleep at the moment. So, you dropped by for a reason? Tien asked, sitting in the chair opposite her. I mean, people don't usually take hikes into the mountains just to say hi. Sure, she said. I need someone to train me. He blinked. Well, I don't see why not. Any particular reason? She nodded. Yeah. When I next see Raditz, I'm not going to be so... fragile. See him next? You mean another world? She scowled. No, stupid. Before then. Hate to break it to you, but he's dead. He shrugged. You accepted he won't let us bring him back. Launch shook her head. Sorry I snapped at you. I don't expect you to understand. But we'll meet again in this life. I know that for a fact, just like I know the sky is blue and the grass is green. I just know it. Trust me, will ya? He smiled. Well, if you say so. So, you want me to train you? How strong do you want to get? What are you aiming for? I want to be as strong as he is. Not in Super Saiyan, but his normal form. Can't be done. Sorry, maybe a few years ago, but the Saiyans we know have just gotten so powerful recently. Humans can't catch up with even their base form. But what about the Kaioken? Even with that... Well, maybe I could match Goku's base form for a few seconds. Maybe even have a slight advantage. But it'd be so much effort, it wouldn't be worth trying to sustain that level. So basically, no. It can't be done. She snorted. I'll tell you what can't be done when I've tried it for myself. Now. Let's get started. Now? Chaozu is about to make... Now. Author's note. I am informed that Chaozu is based off the Zhangxi of mythology, a creature something like a vampire. Of course, he doesn't exactly match the description, but I'm going to go with it, as he clearly isn't human, or he wouldn't look so childlike by the end of the show. And while this measurement of power level is proportional to strength, speed, and actual amount of ki, it would be foolish to suggest they all scale linearly. Gohan sat back at his desk, feeling pleased with himself. He's finally going to contribute something to the world, on his own terms. He'd fought and saved lives when he'd been forced to, but he never felt like a true warrior, more like a caged beast to be launched at an enemy. This was different. So many people's lives would improve. Man would become Superman within a generation. Chi-Chi walked in, handing him his lunch. Here you go, she said. How's it going? Pretty good. He indicated the screen. His mother had even bought him a computer for the express purpose of writing this book, with its first half-type chapter. I'm starting with a chapter explaining what ki is, and why it's not a great idea to try and measure it like the aliens in Frieza's Empire did. He had about half the book planned out in his mind. The second chapter was going to be an explanation of how to actually use ki, and some basic training exercises. And the final few chapters would be a summary of their adventures and battles, particularly the ones that had affected the Earth or the galaxy in a big way. Well, I'm sure you know what you're doing. I'm just glad that after I spent all those years telling you to use your head and not just your fists, you finally listened. She joked, heading out. Right. He turned back to the book in progress, taking a bite out of his sandwich. And on the whole, spiritual methods of detecting ki seem to work better than technological, though that is not to say. And now, as promised, it's time for the Break Through the Limit Dead Zone Extremely Short-Lived Special, during the time of peace after Piccolo's defeat and before Raditz's arrival. Piccolo relaxed as the dust settled around him, and the roar of energy faded back into the barren wasteland's usual silence. You could already tell his training was paying off. He was almost twice as powerful as he had been 2 years ago, at the World Tournament. Still, the time wasn't right yet. He'd know. He had patience. His father had waited decades to enact his plan for world domination. He could wait a few more years. He looked around slowly, some kind of energy signature approaching. He frowned. More than one. Goku and his friends? No, they wouldn't attack me for no reason. Staying on his guard, he waited for them to approach. There was a hiss of wind as a humanoid figure rushed past him, trying to intimidate the white-clad demon by passing extremely close by at high speed, then pulling away. Piccolo didn't respond as two more did the same, all settling on top of rock columns around him. He snorted. Are you finished? Who the hell are you supposed to be and what do you want with me? A fourth figure, tall and over-muscled, with dark green skin and an almost reptilian face, hovered in the air in front of Piccolo as the others surrounded him. Slowly, the leader nodded, and the other three leapt forwards, their features now revealed in the midday sun. They were grotesque, demonic, almost gargoyle-like in appearance, dressed in bright, extravagant colors, with equally ridiculous hairstyles. One wielded a pair of short swords, the second had a single two-handed blade, and the third simply balled its fists as it charged. Piccolo grinned. Finally, a good workout. 3 blades swung for Piccolo, but simply swished through his discarded cape and turban, cutting them to ribbons. The unarmed creature was slightly quicker, and turned just in time to have both of Piccolo's feet rammed into its chest, flying back into a cliff face and boring into the rock with the force of the kick. Twisting in the air, Piccolo caught the longsword between his hands, rolling backwards head over heels and throwing the wielder over his head. The demon tumbled through the air at supersonic speeds, crashing into its 2 sword-holding ally. It let out a strangled cry, falling away, a short sword embedded in its stomach. The other gargoyle stared in shock as its comrade died, black blood staining the sand before evaporating under the harsh sun.
You...
The still-standing demon whispered, raising its remaining sword.
You're a monster!
I'll ask you one more time! Piccolo's afterimage faded, and he stood inches from the cowering creature. What do you want? Fearful, it glanced towards its motionless master, still watching events unfold.
Well, go on!
The muscular leader said in a high, grating voice.
Answer him! Don't be rude!
Too slow. Piccolo wrenched the henchman's head from its shoulders, casting it aside with contempt as the body fell to the floor without its key-supported flight. Feeling a faint energy signature from the one he'd thrown into the cliff, he launched a dispersed yellow energy wave that sent massive explosions rippling out for miles around, incinerating the final minion. Piccolo then turned his attention to the leader. Now, you tell me. Fun as this has been, I don't appreciate these pathetic attempts on my life.
Why, you?
The dark green monster ground its fangs, glaring at him with slitted eyes.
Those are not exactly easy to replace, you know.
It sighed, recovering its composure.
The reason we've come is simple. My name is Garlic Jr.
Piccolo snickered.
What?
It demanded. No, carry on. Piccolo tried to avoid grinning. Garlic? Really? His parents must have not have been fond of him. It is a junior. Perhaps it's his grandparents that were cruel.
As I was saying, I am the great and mighty Lord Garlic Jr., and this planet is soon to be mine!
Why?
What?
Why do you want to take over the world? Garlic Jr. snorted.
Impatient, isn't he? It was before your time. My father was in competition with the one known as Kami for the role of Guardian of the Earth. Kami was chosen, and when my father tried to claim the Guardian's throne by force, he was imprisoned for all eternity. Since then, I have been gathering my strength, and now I shall usurp that foolish Guardian. Then Earth will be plunged into eternal, terrible night. It really would have been much simpler to just give my father the throne, you know.
And where do I fit in?
I was getting there!
Garlic snapped.
It is well known that you harbor designs for the Earth yourself. I won't have you stealing my prize. Consider this a preemptive strike.
Piccolo considered this. You're a fool, he concluded.
What did you say?
Piccolo appeared right in front of Garlic, throwing a quick punch, which the demon caught, holding it back in both hands with some effort. I said, you're a fool! Or didn't you hear me the first time? He smiled. Your plan didn't involve the Dragon Balls, did it?
As a matter of fact.
Garlic shoved Piccolo away, stumbling back a couple of steps.
Once you're dealt with, I shall gather them and have the dragon make me immortal. Then my victory is assured. The force of that punch. He shouldn't be this strong. What's happening?
Piccolo burst out laughing. Excellent plan! You clearly haven't done your homework, you imbecile. My life force is linked with Kami's. If you kill me, he dies too, and the Dragon Balls disappear. Garlic scowled.
Well, If you're both dead, nobody will be left to stop me.
I wouldn't count on it. Piccolo settled into his demon-style fighting stance. I've come to realize this planet is home to many formidable warriors. You wouldn't last long. One guy in particular would take you down no problem. Of course, that assumes you can beat me. And let's get one thing clear. I'm going to rule this world, and not you, or anybody else, can stand in my way! Yeah! Piccolo and Garlic vanished, reappearing atop a nearby rock spire, rapidly trading blows. Piccolo ducked a high kick, sweeping Garlic's legs out from under him and elbowed him down through the spire, collapsing it on top of the demon. Piccolo exhaled heavily. He'd already been tired from his training before the fight had begun. That should keep him down for a few. Garlic cannoned into him from below, driving a fist into his face. Piccolo spun away through the air, righting himself in time to block the follow-up kick. He stepped inside Garlic's defenses and hammered home another punch, but the demon held its ground. Growling, Piccolo darted to the side as Garlic's arm swung past him again, and launched a spinning back kick that knocked Garlic away. The heavily muscled monster took a deep breath.
This is ridiculous! My minions should have been able to deal with him easily, yet he's actually proving a challenge for me!
He ducked left, avoiding Piccolo's leading attack as he charged, creating an opening which Garlic exploited. He swung both hands around, gripped together in a double-fisted hammer blow that sent Piccolo flying. The smaller villain grunted in irritation as he arced through the air.
Alright, time to end this little game. I'll use my full power. Ha! Now do you see?
Garlic taunted, unaware of his impending doom.
I am invincible! I cannot be defeated by the likes of you! What do you say to that?
Piccolo had, in fact, one particular thing to say to that, as he appeared in a blur of speed behind Garlic. Maseko! Ha! And so ends the tale of a would-be conqueror, who, had he just arrived a couple years earlier, or in a different timeline, like canon DBZ, would have provided a decent challenge. As it is, the event was so unremarkable that if Piccolo was asked later if he remembered a Garlic Jr., he'd simply shake his head and remind you that there's no need for seasoning, silly. Namekians don't eat food. Ha ha ha. Punny. What did you expect? Sometimes, like in Yo, Son Goku and his friends return, a threat comes along at the wrong time and it's not a challenge for our characters. Of course, sometimes this works the other way, too. See the Frieza saga, in which the hero tries to take on an opponent roughly 50 times his power. Well, that's what mystical prophecies of golden super warriors are for, I guess. Luckily, villains don't get those.
I am the legendary Super Garlic!
Super Garlic!
Stop laughing! I didn't pick it!
And that's it for Chapter 42 and the Dead Zone special. Tune in a few seconds for Chapter 43. See you in a bit. Hercule sat in a sparse gym, downcast. A string of utterly destroyed punching bags lay on the floor, testament to the rage he'd taken out on the room. He sat silently on the edge of the central ring, going through the fight over and over. There really was nothing he could have done differently. His technique was flawless. Goku had just been too fast and strong to overcome. How could this have happened? I worked my whole life to climb to the top, to be the best in the world! And now it's meaningless! Where's the justice in that? I don't deserve this! He looked up at the sound of footsteps. Hey, Dad. Videl waved cautiously as she approached. Oh, hi there, Videl. Hercule sighed. She nodded, sensing the direction of his thinking. I know. She sat down, squeezing his hand. I feel the same way, kind of. But don't let it get you down, okay? It's not like you. But what's just... It's not fair, Videl. It isn't... Hey. She looked up into her father's eyes, full of concern. It's not their fault. They just wanted the truth known. They weren't trying to hurt us. I've talked to them, you know? They're ordinary, nice people. Please don't get bitter. He sniffed. She's right. I have to be better than this. For her. Without her mother here, I'm all she's got. Alright. Do you understand, though? It's hard. I thought I was worth something, but it turns out I'm... weak. Useless. It isn't like that. Think about it. Videl tapped her head. 99% of the people in the world are in the same boat as us. And of those 99%, who's the most skilled martial artist? Who, in other words, has a head start on catching up to these key users? I didn't think of that. He stroked his chin, contemplating.
Yeah, trying to improve is better than giving up anyway, right?
Right. I know you can be number one again, Dad. She beamed, but her thoughts were of a darker tone. It's mostly true. Mostly. He has the potential to be one of the strongest humans in the world. But as for the Saiyans, none of us will ever catch up to the likes of them. Still, he doesn't need to know that yet. He has to have hope. At least for now. The roar of energy shook the Afterlife training grounds, punctuated by the shouts signifying signature moves.
Blitz Cannon! Hyper Tornado! Crusher Ball! Thunder Flash!
17 grueling minutes from the first blow. The dust settled. Pycon, training weights discarded and wearing his simple martial arts outfit he'd had on underneath the weighted robes, stood shakily, panting, but on his feet. Raditz, great gashes scored into his armor, and having lost the energy to maintain Super Saiyan, lay face down in the dirt, in his own scorched crater. Pycon settled into a cross-legged sitting position. That, he said wearily, was the best fight I've had in 300 years. Raditz pulled his face out of the dirt, spitting out dust and shaking his waist-length hair out. Wow, you're pretty strong. I have to admit, you didn't look like much at first, but you're really something. Pycon nodded. Your appearance was deceiving, too. I didn't expect it to be even close. With enough training here, you'll go far. Raditz slowly sat up, sighing as his bruised limbs ache. Well, that gives me a goal at least. I'll be looking for a rematch someday, you know. Pycon grinned. I'll look forward to it. Raditz looked up, hearing the sound of an approaching ego. King Kai was hopping and skipping over to the pair of tired warriors.
Raditz! Stop getting yourselves into fights! That's my job!
What? As usual, the god's conversation was a step ahead of everyone else's, leaving Raditz baffled.
Well, I was just over there arguing with the West Kai over there. He was saying Pycon was stronger than you, but I disagreed. I guess he was right.
The familiar North Kai shrugged, looking forlorn.
At least you didn't last too much longer. We were about to start betting on the outcome.
He wandered off, shaking his head.
It's a shame, really. I had this whole thing planned out. A grand tournament. A great spectacle to decide who's the strongest fighter in Otherworld, with all the Afterlife watching. And these two settled in less than half an hour in some random field. No sense of occasion.
Raditz remained slightly confused as King Kai left. West Kai? Oh! He noticed another portly figure approaching Pycon, a god similar in appearance to King Kai, with purple skin, a single curled antenna, and a monocle over his left eye. Well, I guess he did say there were others. The Afterlife sure is a weird place. Future timeline. Androids 17 and 18 stood atop a rocky outcrop, looking down at the settlement below, now supplied with the food and shelter they need to last through the coming winter in a few months. As it turned out, infinite energy reactors had simply meant that the androids would never fully run out of power. They could still get tired, and indeed they had. 17's scarf was tied around his head to keep the sun off, and 18's jacket around her waist, both with their sleeves rolled up and dirt on their hands and faces for perhaps the first time. 17 had grumbled and complained through the whole thing, but 18 could tell he wasn't serious. He wasn't going to refuse these people the help they needed. Hey, he said, now that they had a spare minute. 18. Yeah? Why did you want to come here? I mean, really. I told you. To help these people those other versions of us spent all these years terrorizing. She shrugged. What's wrong with that? He shook his head. You know what I mean. What made you decide? It's not the kind of decision most people make on the spur of the moment. Heroes maybe, true altruists, but let's face it, heroes were not, as much as we tried to avoid becoming the villains. 18 paused, considering the question. Do you remember being inside Cell? She asked quietly. Yeah, 17 shivered. Don't remind me. try and describe the feeling. Well, it was like being lost in darkness, I guess. I couldn't find myself. She began to add to it, and soon they were finishing each other's statements. I couldn't find you or anything familiar, just darkness. I could feel Cell's mind the whole time, a twisted, evil thing. He didn't care about anyone except his own personal gain. And I realized that was us. I was looking at what Dr. Giraud intended for me, the goal that I was just a step towards, and it terrified me. We were so close to becoming just like him, she finished. He nodded morosely. I know what you mean. So you just wanted to reject Giraud's ideas? Spite the old man? Something like that. I decided to be the best I could, give my all to the exact opposite of what he and Cell stood for. But the past didn't need us. The world does. Right. We're free here. It's funny, the evil versions of us thought they had absolute freedom, but they still just played the roles set out for them. Come on now. He turned to face the sun as it sank towards the horizon. Let's forget what we were made for. Nobody can tell us what to do now. I guess that's all it's ever been about, really. Freedom. Raditz knew this dream. It wasn't the first time, nor would it be the last. But the ending was always different. Which would it be this time? What would he say? He was in a corridor. It stretched out into infinity, into darkness. He knew, though, that if he kept walking, he'd find the end. After a distance beyond distance, a time past time. And sure enough, an infinity passed in an instant. He stood at the end of the passage. A large stone door barred his path. He heaved it open. Stone wasn't heavy for him in real life, but here it felt like lifting a city. Through the door lay a large chamber, lit by flickering torchlight, but the source of the light was always out of sight. He never saw any torches or candles. He didn't bother looking for him. He'd had this dream enough. But this time, would this be different? It was the first time he'd slept since arriving in Otherworld. As it turned out, one of the consequences of keeping one's body in the afterlife was that it still required a living body's upkeep, albeit a reduced amount. Only 1 meal a day and 1 sleep a week, for instance. An Otherworld body was much more energy efficient. The dream continued as it always did. The room was bare but for a set of black stone steps in the center, leading up to a throne draped in animal furs, decorated with exotic skulls and shrouded in darkness. Face hidden in the shadows above, he sat on the throne, Raditz's only unexpelled demon of the past. Bardock, his father. And this is where the dream always changed. Sometimes they talk as if Bardock had never died. Sometimes the dream would simply end. Sometimes Bardock would turn away and leave, seeming disappointed. Still, other times he'd simply sit there, silent and unmoving, until Raditz awoke. What would it be tonight? Somehow, being dead, Raditz felt bolder, as if it put them on equal terms in a strange way. This time, for the first time, he spoke first. Father. Bardock stirred. His face became visible as he leaned forwards. The errant son returns from the wayward path. The voice, its quality, it was him. It wasn't distant or blurred by time and faulty memory like usual. This was his father speaking to him. Are you really here? Raditz asked. Now that I'm in the afterlife, is this really you? Or is it all in my head? Bardock shook his head. Fool. It is both real and in your mind. You're in the realm of the mind now. There's no difference here. What happened to your soul? You weren't put into that machine. No. But nor could I pass into heaven, and neither was I pure enough of mind to count among the heroes or villains of legend. No. My soul was one of the unlucky few who were just simply lost. I'm neither here nor there. In a way, I'm not even aware we're having this conversation. You're just perceiving that we are. Why are you here? What's so important about this dream? Raditz began to climb the steps. Simple, Bardock shrugged. I weigh on your mind. You've accepted that you're morally good, but you doubt your worth as a warrior. You know how I died, and you worry that you will never live up to me. Raditz was shaken slightly by his father's blunt, brief manner. Why? Why should I fear that? Didn't I die in just a heroic manner as you? Why should I fear your disapproval? Bardock smirked. Don't ask me. I am, after all, only here because you do fear it. Working out why is your task. Then what are you here for? To test you. At that, Bardock sprang up, a right hook smashing Raditz across the face. As a long-haired Saiyan tumbled back through the air, the world around him shifted. Planets and stars faded into view around them. Father and son hovered in the void of space. To test me? Raditz growled, trying to gather his ki, but finding it difficult for some reason. What the hell is this? Defend yourself! Bardock ordered, charging again. Raditz blocked the older warrior's kick with his forearm, moving back to put distance between himself and his attacker. Stop this, father! I don't want to fight you! And that's your problem. Bardock pressed the attack, and his speed seemed to increase as his fists flew with unrelenting force. The fourth punch slipped through Raditz's guard, and he fell away again, grimacing. What's the matter? I thought you'd outgrown this. Or are you the same wimp that brought disgrace to my family on planet Vegeta? No! No! Raditz lunged, but his fist stopped just short of Bardock's face. He hesitated, wavering. And in that moment, Bardock grabbed his arm and threw him overhead, following with a two-footed kick to the back. Better, but not good enough! Have years of fighting taught you nothing? Raditz forced himself upright. I can't! I can't fight you, father! That's because you know you'll win. Bardock spat. The speed of that punch, I couldn't have blocked it. You still idolize me. I'm not a man to you. I'm your father. Let go. Allow yourself to surpass me. You have surpassed me. I can't just let go of you. Raditz sniffed, wiping blood trickling from his nose. Then what do I have left? What can I hold on to? Yourself. Your friends. Your new family. There's no one in the whole universe I'd rather have by my side than them. And you know, like Launch knows, that you'll meet again. Trust yourself for once, alright? You're not a Saiyan warrior anymore. You don't have to be. You don't have to live up to me. I'm not a great role model. Trust me on that. Raditz grinned bitterly. Are you really here? Or is my subconscious just trying to tell me something? I told you, Bardock said. Both. Well, if you believe in me. His eyes narrowed as his ki built within him, finally bursting out as he transformed, his golden aura shining. Then I will too! He smiled as he realized this was the first time he'd been able to become a Super Saiyan in a dream. It felt just as empowering as when he'd first transformed. Like he could take on the world. Bardock smiled. There. Now you believe. And you deserve it. He spread his arms, accepting defeat. Finish it. Lay me to rest. Goodbye, Bardock. Greatest fighter of your age. He powered up an energy blast in one hand. But this is a new age, I guess. If you ever come back somehow, I hope you get a chance to be the good person I know you could have been. So long. Yeah! He flung the beam at his father, the bright yellow blaze enveloping the battle-scarred soldier and obliterating him, purging Raditz's mind, searing through his mental pathways, and finally eliminating his self-doubt. Gohan sat back, exhausted, and spent the whole day writing. Sooner or later, I'm going to run out of information I just know from memory. I'm going to have to do some research. Admittedly, that's not too hard when you can fly faster than the speed of sound, at least. He got up and stretched. Well, anyway, that's later. Right now, I smell something good cooking. And that's the end of chapter 43. Thank you so much for tuning in. We've got time for one more chapter. See you in chapter 44. Almost a year after the events of chapter 43. Bulma was sitting at the monitor, working on her new project. The strange habit of doodling sevens had reduced in its intensity, and she now routinely carried scraps of paper to avoid vandalizing the walls everywhere she went. Really, she'd stopped paying attention. 7 Dragon Balls, perhaps? But that didn't tell her anything. Ah well, I don't really care. What interests me now is this project I'm working on. The initial idea came to me when I first came back. Being killed by Cell really made me realize how fragile and vulnerable a normal human can be in this world of superpowered aliens and heroes. I got a pretty good description of these Kaioken and Spirit Bomb techniques from some of the guys, and something felt different. She almost jumped out of her skin as she glanced down at the piece of paper she'd been using. Halfway down the page, the 7s had become 6s. Bulma jumped up and sprinted out of the room. Dad! Quick! Get over here! Raditz and Pycon's battle paused, and they settled to the ground. Their energy pulsed around them, whipping up clouds of dust and carving out rocks in the ground. This was the same place they'd first fought. The same place they'd always fought. And after so many battles, it was completely devastated, reduced from pleasant greenery to a mile or so square of utterly barren wasteland. Come on, Raditz, Pycon said wearily. How many times are we going to do this? You've improved a lot, but even with your maximum Super Saiyan power, you're still about equal with me, and you just can't stand up to my most powerful techniques. Shall we try the Thunder Flash again? Raditz grinned ironically, seeming to accept his coming defeat. Yeah, those tricks of yours are pretty tough to beat, but I know a few myself. With this, he teleported to directly behind Pycon with instant transmission. Expecting the move, the alien fighter turned and caught Raditz's punch. Growling in frustration, Raditz broke off his attack, and they leapt into the air, exchanging a blur of punches and kicks as they rose into the sky. Raditz mistimed the block and Pycon's fist crashed into his face, followed by a double-footed impact as he kicked off the Saiyan's chest, using the motion to backflip away and quickly charge up his ki, rapidly spinning in a tight circle, faster and faster, until he disappeared into a high-speed streak of light, twisting around itself and throwing out gale-force winds. Hyper Tornado! Raditz braced himself as the tornado rushed forwards and enveloped him. Held in the center by the extreme air pressure, he waited for the inevitable rain of attacks from all sides, as Pycon orbited him faster than his senses could follow. He gave the appearance of weakness, waiting for Pycon to slow slightly in an attempt to deliver the finishing blow. And then, in that instant, for only the 3rd time, he did it. He went beyond. It was like turning on a tap, like going Super Saiyan all over again. He relished the flood of power that exploded from his transformed body. Sparks crackled through his aura. His hair stood up on end, and his eyes narrowed. Now, he could see Pycon. Now the green-hued hero looked laughably slow. Raditz grinned, twitching to the side to avoid a punch and bringing his elbow down on Pycon's back. A single blow smashing him into the ground. In an instant, Raditz was down there too, driving Pycon further into the ground with one foot, then hopping off and crouching next to his battered opponent. As Pycon looked up, bewildered, Raditz stared back, unflinchingly, spirits soaring. I win. What in all the heavens did you just do? Pycon asked incredulously. I ascended to a true higher level, Raditz replied. I believe on Earth they call it Super Saiyan 2. I'm just glad I knew this level of power even existed. Like Goku and Gohan, I'd have had to go through some kind of emotional trauma to unlock it. A lot of things combined to enable this, actually. A less energy-draining otherworld body was a major factor, as was the lack of the subconscious mental block Father represented. And finally, a target always helps immensely. So thanks for that, Pycon. Ridiculous! Isn't one transformation enough? Not to beat you, evidently. Raditz powered down, turned, and began to walk off. Well, be seeing you. Looks like you've got some serious training to do. You can't be serious. I am serious, Mom. Gohan stood resolutely, expression unchanging. But going into space? What on earth for? Chi-Chi blustered. I've got to get this thing done. The boy held up the notepad he'd been scribbling down notes for his book on. You didn't have any problem with me flying to the other side of the world to do research, did you? Yes, but leaving the planet? That's completely different! She shook her head. No way! Why do you even need to do that? What can you learn on some other world that you can't hear? Plenty. He opened up his notepad. See, we have no idea what happened to the whole galactic empire since we took out the Frost Demon hierarchy. We know next to nothing about Saiyan society, something which I'd personally like to learn about. Not to mention the various other species we've come into contact with. Besides, my uncle visited one random planet and learned how to teleport himself anywhere, instantly. That ability alone has saved us all more than once. Who knows what secrets are hidden out there? She weighed all this up in her mind. One more thing, he added, gesturing with his pencil. I mentioned we don't know what's happened to the X-Empire. What if it's fallen into anarchy, or into the hands of another tyrant? In that case, it'd be our fault, and our duty to fix it, right? She slumped back against the wall. You're just like your father. Someone, somewhere, might be in trouble, and you have to rush off to save them. Chi-Chi sighed. Now I see what this is really about. You wouldn't do something this big just for research. There's always a wrong that needs righting, and if there isn't, you'll go find one. It's in your blood. I guess, if you're that determined, it'd be pointless for anyone to try and stop you, right? He nodded, and she gave a sad smile. Well, that settles it then. But you're not going alone. You got that? Mm-hmm. Gohan shuffled his feet. I said, you got that! Yes, ma'am. There was, of course, only one place to go should one wish to mount an expedition into space. Capsule Corporation. Gohan found Bulma and her father poring over a set of readouts. No change in brain activity, the older scientist said. I know. Weird. Maybe it's some kind of countdown, his daughter suggested. Perhaps, Dr. Brief replied, nodding. Or maybe it's keeping count of how many of something there are. One of whatever it is has just left or was destroyed or ended. It could go back up later. We really don't know. Still, keep watching. Tell me if it changes again. Oh, hello there, Gohan. Gohan waved. Hey, Bulma, Dr. Brief. He scratched his head. Your mom not around? It's just you three are usually together. I'm damned if I ever know where that woman is, the doctor told him, shrugging. I wouldn't worry. She's just never been as interested in science as Bulma and I. Anyway, what can we do for you, kid? Bulma asked. Sorry if this is a bit much to ask, but I kind of need a spaceship. Oh! Bulma looked thoughtful, walking over to the window. I think the ship your dad and uncle went to Namek is still around here somewhere. Maybe we've got it in a capsule or something. Why do you want to go to space, anyway? Who all's going? 10 minutes ago. Nah, Goku said. If Chi-Chi's staying, then so am I. I don't want to abandon you or anything, Gohan, but whenever something comes up, I'm always running off. I figured it'd be unfair to leave her completely alone this time, right? Well, I guess. Don't worry, I'm sure plenty of the guys will jump at the chance for an adventure. You'll be in good hands. Or the other way around. Alright. Gohan headed out the door, only to be startled by a voice from the left. Space, huh? Sounds fun. Mind if I tag along? Videl asked. She dropped by for a weekly key training session with the Sun family, and had overheard the whole conversation. Oh, hey Videl. Didn't sense you at all. You're getting good at hiding your key. You know it, she grinned. So, how about it? Well, I don't know. Great! I'll tell my dad I'm going to train in the wilderness for a bit. Unlock my hidden potential or some crap. See ya! Tensing up her muscles, she took off into the sky, soaring off with her usual combination of grace and efficiency. The present. So, Videl should be here soon, Gohan explained. I'm not sure if she's entirely ready, but there's really no arguing with her. Who else do you think could come? Bulma chewed her pencil. Afraid I can't go myself. I've got a few projects here I'm really getting into. You'll probably need people who've got space travel experience. I bet Kariza would be happy to help. You two have always been close. Plus he lives right here with us. And you're going to need at least one adult with you. A malicious grin spread across her face. I know somebody who needs a good road trip to get him off his back. She hammered on a bedroom door. Hey, Zarbon! Get off your ass! You're going to space! Ignoring the ensuing stream of vulgarity from the other side of the door, she glanced down as her watch, wirelessly connected to the alarm systems throughout the building, beeped, a blinking red light appearing. And it looks like Trunks has bitten through his cot again. I better go round up the little terror. See you in 5, Gohan. Considerably more than 5 minutes later, Gohan, Videl, Kuriza, who thanks to a newly learned ki aptitude, was now constantly in his true final form without risk of losing control of his power, and a groggy Zarbon were assembled in the Capsule Corp garden. Bulma stood opposite them, leaning on their ship, the one based on Goku's Saiyan pod, still dented and damaged from the trip dynamic. Well, she said, it's pretty beat up. It'll take maybe 3 days to fix it up. You already know what you're doing, vaguely, so come back in 3 days to set off, and until then, get ready to set off and plan out specific destinations. From talks with you guys and damaged files on board the ship, I've managed to make a pretty accurate map of important locations in the galaxy. To make a short and completely uninteresting story even shorter, they did. Hercule hissed like an angry cobra. He'd get it this time. He knew he would. Beads of sweat poured down his face. He'd been trying for months. But this time, this was it. His teeth ground together as he forced his internal energy into the palms of his hands. And... out into the air between them. Me! His eyes narrowed. Just keeping the energy stable, not slipping and losing it, required his full concentration. Still, it was working. He could see the faint blue glow in the corner of his eye. Videl had done well, relaying the lesson she'd learned to him. Me! He resisted the urge to take in a deep breath and relax. He wouldn't lose it now. He focused on the archery target in front of him. Now! Launch landed on the ground, wiping blood and sweat from her forehead with her bandana. She inhaled deeply as Tien landed in front of her. Well done, he said. You're improving fast. Your flight speed was faster than ever. It's weird. I've never seen any human increase their power as fast as you. If I didn't know better, I'd say you were a Saiyan or something. Maybe Raditz's mindset rubbed off on me, she joked. But seriously, I have felt a lot stronger ever since I fused, even before I started training. It is strange, yeah. She changed a lot already. She now had a fighter's athletic build, and her ragged, intense appearance was a far cry from the slick, stylish city girl of not even a year ago. Anyway, I think I've come further than you realize. Oh? Tien raised an eyebrow, causing a strange effect on his three-eyed visage. How do you mean? A shockwave rippled out from Launch's body as she began to power up. He doesn't even know I can do this one at all yet. Kaioken! What? Tien took a step back. Already? Okay then, we all ready? Gohan asked, checking the readouts on the command console. Yeah! Kuriza answered with enthusiasm. Let's go! Videl urged. Zarbon mumbled. Good luck, you guys! Bulma called from outside, standing between Gohan's parents as they waved them off. Have fun, Goku added. Stay safe, Chi-Chi warned. Right. Gohan nodded, waved once more and pressed the ignition. With the roar from its engines, the ship lifted off, flattening Dr. Brief, who, as usual, was standing too close to the dangerous machinery, as testified by his frequent visits to the infirmary, always insisting that he was fine, despite all evidence to the contrary. As they watched the receding glow of its engines, Bulma turned to the human Saiyan couple. So, why aren't you guys going again? Goku shrugged. I'm staying here with Chi-Chi. And you? Bulma looked at Goku's wife. You always seem pretty protective of Gohan. Well, why not go with him? Well, I would, but you see, I've been pretty busy lately. I've got to look after Goten, for one thing. She grinned. Goten? Bulma folded her arms, waiting for an explanation. What's a Goten? Well, our second son, of course. Chi-Chi shrugged. He wasn't actually born too long ago. A couple of months ago, to be precise. But you don't... Bulma spluttered, incredulous. Chi-Chi bore no sign of the pregnancy, looking just as in shape as ever. Well, I guess I work out a lot. The younger woman replied cheerily. It just burns the fat right off, you know? Right. Bulma grimaced, inwardly. I forgot. She may be human, but she's still part of that family. They're all crazy. Well, congratulations. Any idea when I can meet the little guy? Not really. I'm not sure. When he's a little older, I suppose. Speaking of which, we really should be getting back soon. Can't leave a baby alone for too long. Luckily, Goku can fly us back in a few minutes. You ever thought of learning? Bulma asked. Flying, I mean. You're already a martial artist, right? The way I hear it, everyone's going to be doing it when Gohan's book's done. Well, I was thinking about that when Videl started coming to our house for lessons. You know, seriously putting some time into training. But then Goten came along and I started getting bigger and all that went out the window. Maybe sometime soon, though. Goku offered his hand. Well, I'll bet he'll be happy to see you anyway. So let's get home, alright? See you, Bulma. Right. Bulma waved half-heartedly as the happy couple took off. It's changed. Why is it changed? What's different now? 7? 6? Is it keeping track of something? Or counting down? Damn it. Well, if it is something like that, time is probably of the essence. This project could be useful. She hurried off to the lab. I'd better get back to work. One thing I'd like to get out of the way here. That's not all we're going to hear about Goten's birth. I'm not going to skim over it completely. I was deliberately not showing him yet. It's build-up, alright? Don't nag me about it. One other thing. Sometimes I'm really pressed for time. Sometimes it's Sunday and the chapter's only half done and I have to rush it. But not this week. It was mostly written by Tuesday. But of course I didn't finish it until Sunday evening, damn it. Anyway, yeah, time skip. 10 or 11 months, I guessed. I hadn't planned it, but I figured it would take Gohan quite a while to make a decision like this. Plus, it meant I could put the bit with the 6s in this chapter, and also show the results of some training. So, yeah, space will be involved. Feel free to start speculating which movie characters this will involve, and whether they'll just be random throwaway plots, or if they'll actually affect the story in some way later on, as if I actually planned this stuff or something. Hint, it's the last one. So, while there are a lot of subplots going on in this Countdown saga, there are going to be 3 main events. 3 main storylines, one after the other. This, Trip into Space, is the first. Between them, these 3 will contain elements from 4 movies, 2 OVAs, and a little something from GT. He said the forbidden word! Burn the witch! But seriously, I know GT was, well, bad. There's no other way of putting it. But I'm just going to... Yeah, you'll see. It's nothing horrible, don't worry. Alright, that is it for Chapter 44. Thank you so much for tuning in to Chapters 42 through 44 of Break Through the Limit. We're now getting into the Countdown saga. What'll happen next time with Gohan's trip into space? Tune in for Chapter 45 and 46. I might do Chapter 47. I'll just have to see if I have enough time. Anyway, tune in next week for that. And I'll see you in the next video. Don't forget to like, favorite, comment, and subscribe. Tell your friends. Follow me on Twitter to keep up to date with the show. And as always, I'll see you in the next video. Stay safe. Ginger Powers, signing off.